Hey host! For those of you who don't know me, my name is Kenzie and I'm so happy that you found my channel. And welcome to day 12 of my countdown to Halloween, where I am posting videos every single day in the month of October. First things first, I'm gonna be realistic. Why does that come to my mind? I am at the cabin, so the lighting's not great because my ring light is back home. So I'm working with what I got. All I got is the kitchen light. So I really hope that lighting's not terrible. It is a little bit later. I should have filmed this earlier. My bad. But ignore the lighting. Today we were talking about John Wayne Gacy, otherwise known as the Killer Clown. He was like a kid's party clown. He didn't kill as the clown, but he's known as the Killer Clown. I don't know. So we're gonna be talking about John Wayne Gacy. I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard of him. So let's just get right into this video. John Wayne Gacy was born March 17th, 1942 in Chicago, Illinois, to his parents John Stanley Gacy and Maureen Elaine Robinson. He also has two sisters named Karen and Joanne Gacy. So John had a really rough upbringing. Although he was very close with his mother and his sisters, it is said that his father was extremely abusive and he was an alcoholic and was physically abusive towards his family. Like a lot of abused children, John still really loved his father, but he felt like he was never good enough in his father's eyes. His father made him feel inadequate and that he just was never good enough for him. So one of the first things John was actually caught doing was in 1949, when John was just 7 years old. Him and a friend were caught sexually fondling a little girl, and he was severely punished by his father for this. Unfortunately for John, later that year, he actually began getting molested himself from a family friend, but he didn't dare tell anybody at the time because he feared that his father would blame him for what was happening to him. So John was also a fairly sick child. He said in a later interview after he was caught that from the ages of 14 to 18, he guessed that he was in the hospital for a year's worth of time within those 4 years. Even though he was severely sick and was hospitalized all the time, his father still accused him while he was laying in a hospital bed that he was faking his illness for attention or faking his illness in general. So skipping to 1956, this is when John he committed his first official sexual assault when he was only 14 years old himself. He took a 9-year-old boy. He was working at a resort in Wisconsin, and he took a 9-year-old boy out on the lake in a boat, and it is said that he made the boy perform oral sex on him. Disgusting. Like, so much is wrong with that sentence, but that was his first official sexual assault. So if we're being honest, nobody expected what I'm about to tell you. The information I just told you wasn't actually known to the public until after John Wayne Gacy was caught. So to the general public, he was a very well-liked man and was very well known within his community. Like I said, he was well known in his community because he had a successful construction business. He was very involved in the local politics, and like I mentioned at the beginning, he was a clown for birthday parties, and he went to the hospitals to visit sick children as a clown. He was known as Pogo the Clown. So moving on to 1967, when John was 25 years old, he was accused of sexually assaulting 2 high schoolers. These boys said that John gave them alcohol and then forced them to watch porn films while then making sexual contact with them. So at this point in his life, when he was 25 years old, he was the manager of a local restaurant and was a father of 2, and he was married and living in Iowa. However, his family man image was quickly shaken and ruined when these 2 boys came forward, and he was actually sentenced to 10 years in jail on December 3rd, 1968. Just 2 years later, though, in 1970, he was actually granted parole due to good behavior. I don't know how that works, how you can be sentenced to 10 years but get out after only 2 for good behavior, especially for what he was convicted of. Anyway, after he pled guilty to the assault charges, he then got divorced and his wife took custody of the children, as she should. So John actually moved back home to Chicago to live with his widowed mother. So his good behavior didn't last long, as you might have guessed. On February 12, 1971, a boy tells police that John actually picked him up from the bus station and forced him to have sex. These charges were later dropped because the boy ended up not showing into court to testify. So all the charges were dropped. However, this seemed to slip through the cracks of the Iowa probation board because they did nothing. It was seemingly like they didn't know that it happened, which is quite possible. I mean, he was in a different state. However, you would think that one of your parolees gets in trouble, that they would find out about it regardless, especially because it did go to court. Back in 1970, who knows what was happening. Even though he was convicted of sexual assault and was accused of sexual assault several times, he actually never killed anybody up until 1972. January 3rd, 1972, John brought home a teenage boy where they drank and have sex. However, the evening ended when John stabbed him to death and then buried him in the crawl space of his house. So jumping ahead to his next known victim, July 13th, 1975, one of the teenage boys that actually worked for John's construction company went missing, and it is said that he went missing after a very heated argument between John and the missing boy. It later came out that this teenager's car was found not far from his parents' house with the key still in the ignition, and he was later found out and later named to be one of John's murder victims. Early 1976, a 9-year-old prostitute. Firstly, let's just let that sentence sink in on its own. A 9-year-old prostitute. 9 years old. Wow, like, I can't wrap my head around that. But this 9-year-old prostitute was reported missing, and the police ended up staking out John's house because it was known that John had men coming in and out of his house. So they decided to stake out the house and try to question anybody coming and going. But this ultimately led to no reliable or no relevant evidence. So after his second divorce, because throughout all of this, he did get remarried, but after his second divorce, he picked up the pace with his murders, and it is said that another 24 victims were killed between April 1976 and the end of 1977. So this is where John started to slip up a little bit. On March 21st, 1978, John used a chloroform-filled rag to subdue, torture, and rape a 26-year-old man, which typically isn't his type. He likes little boys, but a 26-year-old man, but he dumps him alive in the park. However, John was never formally charged with anything because this victim actually took a settlement of $3,000. So I don't know if things were dropped or if he just took the plea deal, took the settlement. I don't know how all that works, but John ultimately got away with this for $3,000. Fast forward to December 11th, 1978. A 15-year-old boy goes missing, and the police follow the word of the boy. The boy had told his mother that he was going to meet somebody about a high-paying job, and this actually led them right to John. This is known as John Wayne Gacy's last murder victim. He was obviously questioned for the murder, and in December of 1978, he actually confesses to all of the murders and all about his crimes to his lawyer. So he admits and tells his lawyer that he raped and killed roughly 30 people. He was then obviously arrested and told the investigators that most of the bodies were buried in his crawl space in his house, but he also did dump some in a nearby river. In total, 29 bodies were found in his crawl space, and another 4 were found in the river. April 23rd, 1979, John Wayne Gacy is indicted for these murders, and he he's indicted by a grand jury. The number of charges against John Wayne Gacy was the most charges against a single person in all of American history. I don't know if that still stands to this day. I couldn't find anything, but at the time, he was the person with the most charges against him. February 1980, the trial does begin, and it lasts 5 weeks. The living victim that ended up taking the $3,000 took the stand, and he actually ended up becoming violently ill while remembering and talking about what had happened to him. John Wayne Gacy's mother and sisters actually took the stand as well to describe and verify that they went through some emotional and physical abuse from their alcoholic father. But on March 12, 1980, John Wayne Gacy is found guilty and is sentenced to death. May 10th, 1994, John Wayne Gacy is executed at the Illinois State-Built Correctional Center. If you were curious, like I was, his last meal was fried chicken, shrimp, fries, and strawberries. Man loves his strawberries. His last statement was actually a statement of the belief of his innocence. Regardless of this, he did die from lethal injection at the age of 52. So to summarize everything we just talked about, John Wayne Gacy killed at least 33 victims between the years of 1972 and 1978. So at least 33 victims, 33 known victims, I should say, because there's most definitely probably more, but at least 33 victims in 6 years. And that is the story of John Wayne Gacy, also known as the Killer Clown, also known as Pogo the Clown. Yeah, very disturbed man. I find it interesting because a lot of serial killers do have that terrible upbringing, but a lot of them don't as well. So that's why I tried to include how terrible his upbringing was, just so you kind of get the behind the scenes as well. But, oh, that lighting's terrible. That is it for today's video, you guys. I hope you did enjoy. Sounds weird to say that every time, but I hope you did enjoy. I post videos every single day in the month of October, so I hope you subscribe so you never miss a video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.